I'll go into these, but I dated a chaser who ended up dumping me because I wouldn't have the type of segs he wanted. I got carried away in a date and, I hadn't disclosed that I was trans prior to that date. And things got heated between us and I put myself in a really dangerous situation. I had really poor boundaries with men because I thought that their attraction to me validated my womanhood. Validated my womanhood. I just want to go into some of these for you so you can understand, I guess, my experiences with this and help you come to your own conclusions here. So, welcome to the Trans Boss podcast, home of the Trans Boss movement, the place where empowered trans people come to discover what it takes to become the best versions of themselves. I am your host, Jasmine Vine, a Transfem trans empowerment specialist and the CEO of Javine, and I'm here to guide you on this empowering journey. In each episode, we'll dive deep into topics that matter to us trans people, like navigating through societal challenges, as well as building resilience and embracing an empowering mindset. We'll explore it all. We'll also bring on some incredible guests who are making a positive impact in the trans community. The Trans Boss podcast is your go-to resource for empowerment, hope, wisdom, and epic stories from empowered trans bosses across the globe. It's time to kick life's ass and create an empowered, authentic you. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Trans Boss podcast. So today I'm talking about a topic that has been highly requested of me many times in the past, and that is dating as a trans person. Let's talk about it. Dating. Oh my goodness. Dating is a minefield in and of itself. Whether you're trans or not, dating can be a difficult experience. And when you're trans, that difficulty level rises yet again. And I have had many experiences around this that I would like to share with you. I've made a whole bunch of mistakes along my journey, and if I can help you avoid some of those mistakes or help you come to your own sort of conclusion easier or quicker than before, that would be fantastic. And it's also a little bit of a vulnerable share for me. There's some shame and things that I've had to work through to come to where I am today. When I was about 16, I remember I really started dating a lot around that time. I was lacking a lot of confidence in myself. I was lacking the feeling of validity in my womanhood. I really did not feel valid as a woman. I'd had so much bullying and so much, people telling me that I wasn't valid and that I was always going to be a man or blah, blah, blah. And back in the day, that really hurt me. As much as I put up a front and say, I don't care what anyone says, it did hurt me. And it doesn't so much nowadays, because when people say you'll always be a man, you might as well be calling me a blue giraffe. It's like it means nothing to me. But back then it did, because it was a sore spot. It was something unhealed within myself. There was a lot that came up around that, particularly with the self-confidence and the self-worth and validity in my womanhood. I felt like I had to prove my femininity, and that, desire to feel valid took me to some very unproductive and also very unsafe places. And some of those things, I'll go into these, but I dated a chaser who ended up dumping me because I wouldn't have the type of segs he wanted. I got carried away in a date and, I hadn't disclosed that I was trans prior to that date, and things got heated between us and I put myself in a really dangerous situation. I had really poor boundaries with men because I thought that their attraction to me validated my womanhood. I just want to go into some of these for you so you can understand, I guess, my experiences with this and help you come to your own conclusions here. The whole chaser situation, I was dating a guy, and this would have been when I was 16, maybe 15, 16. He never said anything about me being trans. He never really disclosed any of that, of his thoughts or feelings. And I just thought, oh, maybe he just sees me for me. I felt pretty good in that. I was like, awesome. We went on a couple of dates. We had some chemistry there, and I was like, okay, this is nice. So we ended up spending a fair bit of time together. And later on, I found out that he identified as a cross-dresser, but he had like purged all of his things. It's a thing that happens with cross-dressers a lot, actually, and a lot of trans people, is they buy a lot of feminine clothing and gender-affirming things, and then the shame creeps in, and then they purge and like get rid of all of it. He had done that. Now, I'd seen some things where I was like, oh, okay, there seems to be some fetishization happening there. Like, I don't know how much I can talk about on here, but there seemed to be some fetishization. After a while, for whatever reason, I was like, oh, okay, that doesn't mean anything. That's fine. Maybe he thought he was, trans, but wasn't, or whatever. Like, I had no context for it. I really had no idea. So I was kind of just like, yeah, whatever. He had like a serious conversation with me, kind of thing. And the serious conversation was so out of the blue. And it was essentially, hey, if you don't want to engage in penetrative things with me, I'm sure you can get the gist of what I mean, then I can't be with you. We have to break up. I'm like, what? That was like so freaking weird to me. And I get that, sex can be important to some people, but that was so strange to me. I am not a very sexual person myself. I identify somewhere on the asexual spectrum. That was just kind of bewildering. I felt so icky and like gross, because that's not something that I was ever felt comfortable with. It was absolutely not. That's not the role I foresee myself playing here. And so he broke up with me. Like, over that. I would say it was hurtful, but it was almost just more confusing more than anything, to be honest. We just like ended things there. We kind of stopped talking. It was like this whole weird thing. And later on, his cousin, I think, found messages between him and me, and him trying to save face and trying to protect his ego, decided to start like cyberbullying me for being trans, and saying that I tricked him and that he didn't know that I was trans, and how could I do that to him, and yada yada. And this was all like driven by his cousin, apparently, who was like egging him on. And that was more hurtful. That was more, because it was like, for better or worse, I kind of trusted this person to a degree. Here he was calling me the F word and calling me all these slurs and everything in order to save face with his cousin. That was really like my first negative experience dating as a trans woman that was really like, whoa, that was just, what the hell was that? It actually caused me to have a lot of a very negative reaction to trans attracted people, understanding that there's a difference between someone who's trans attracted versus someone who's fetishizing trans people and who's a chaser, and understanding things like genital preferences and things like that. It took me quite a while, and to be honest, I'm still working through it, of actually developing compassion and empathy for people who I will unconsciously label as a chaser. That still gives me a very negative reaction because of those experiences in my past. There is a lot of people that fetishize trans people. There is a lot of that grossness out there. And I think a lot of that stems from porn and how trans people are portrayed in porn and all of the stuff that comes up there. And so there's a level of me that's like, it's ignorance in part. People don't just fetishize trans women. Like, how many women in general get unsolicited pictures from guys? Like, that fetishization and that over-sexualization happens everywhere, not just with trans women. But that's my experience, obviously, like as a trans woman. And I do see there's a lot of prevalence in that. And I know a lot of trans people with similar experiences as well. I've really had to work through that and understand for myself, like deeply understanding my own attraction has helped me actually pick apart when someone is fetishizing or being gross in their interactions. It doesn't matter who it's to, who it's from, trans or not trans, it does not matter. That fetishization, that over-sexualization, that gross behavior is gross behavior regardless. So I just want to make that very clear. And there's a very big difference than that to that and to respectful attraction to various types of people in various bodies. And I know for myself that there are different forms of attraction. Actually, I'll go into this in a future episode with Winter. She absolutely loves this stuff. She's gender and attraction coach, part of Divine. And essentially, in short, the split attraction model, she talks about the, physical attraction, sexual, emotional, mental, like intellectual. There's all these different forms of attraction we could have with someone. And I know for myself, when I've dived into that and I've picked that apart, I know that I can be attracted to someone who is presenting very feminine. However, genital preference is not typically what would go along with that. I know just through that experience that there can be people that are just innocently, they're attracted to trans women because they're attracted to femininity. They are attracted to women, but perhaps they're actually attracted to an outie more than an innie. Like, that is actually a thing that happens. And I've had to really think about that and really deconstruct that in my mind to not judge it and to not view it as fetishization, because it's actually not. If someone is being really respectful and that is just their attraction and they understand that, I don't believe there's anything wrong with that. So anyway, that's a little tangent, but that's a whole nother thing. So other experiences, the other big one that really comes to mind is I went on a date, and again, I probably would have been 16. We really sort of clicked. There was a lot of chemistry. We had some nice sort of deep conversations. We also had a few drinks. Like, I had a few vodkas. I was a little bit sort of tipsy and all of that. He was really romantic. He was like really... like the chemistry was really freaking there. What ended up happening, he kind of was really sort of coming on to me, but in a really nice way that I really enjoyed. It was such a weird experience because I thought, oh, I'll get to know him first. I'll get to know him before, I disclose I'm trans, because what if I don't even like him? Like, I don't know. And that's very much the experience I've had before. The big question of should you disclose that you're trans before going on a date with someone? I never did, because I thought I want to give them the opportunity to meet me, to talk to me, to understand that I'm just like any other woman. If I like him, then I'll disclose, then I'll actually talk about it. And I'm saying him because it's actually a very different experience for me dating a masculine sort of person versus a feminine person, because I feel a lot more comfortable and safe dating a feminine person. Well, that's a whole nother topic. But yes, I always had that idea that I wanted to allow them to get to know me first, and for me to get to know them a little bit first as well before going down that route, because otherwise it's just discomfort and weirdness for no reason. And so that's what I did in this one, and I did not anticipate the situation to go the way it did. Hello, lovely. If you like what you're hearing so far, and I hope you do, then you are going to love the free trainings that I have. So these trainings have helped hundreds of my own clients and my followers get into a place of empowerment, loving their authentic selves with more hope, comfort, confidence, and safety. And that is really what we're all about here. So if you're listening to this podcast, there's something for you, trans or not, whether you're interested in trauma healing or, learning to live a more empowered life, in control life, or if you're just sick of your voice getting you misgendered, then these trainings break down my core methodologies to help you with all of that and more. And it's the methodologies that I use with all of my clients. So you can register for that via the link in the description box below, and I will see you there. Mwah. Now let's get back into the episode. The whole leaning in and kissing kind of thing. And I was really I was woozy on the freaking alcohol. I had butterflies in my chest. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was actually swooning. It was freaking... And when I look back, I realized that there was a part of me that wanted myself to have that cis experience, to have that experience of, I can go on a date with someone and it's okay if it goes that way. It's okay if we kiss. It's okay if you have a one-night stand with someone. In the cis world, that happens all the time. It's totally okay. It's totally normal, right? But for a trans person, it's a totally different situation. And so there was almost this grieving for the reality that could have been. If I was born cis, this would not feel weird. This would just be normal. This would just be an experience that I get to have, that I get to learn from, just like any other freaking woman, right? And so that grieving was really intense for me looking back on it. I had to do a lot of processing and work through the guilt and the shame associated with that, and working on accepting myself as the beautiful freaking trans person I am, because I didn't for the longest time. I really did not accept myself. And that showed up in how I showed up in dating. And this was one of those times. And so I let it go. I didn't stop it. I felt really uncomfortable. I was really sort of like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be doing this. This is a dangerous situation. He should know first. Like, I was going through all of this stuff in my brain. Call it the alcohol. I don't know. But I let it go ahead. My goodness, I'm really freaking, I've never spoken about this. We went out to his car. Things happened. Things with mouths. Yeah. And I stopped him from touching me. It was this situation of like, holy shit, I'm too far in, like, to this. Like, what do I do? I had no idea what to freaking do. And on the one hand, I was enjoying that experience. I was like, this is an experience that people have, right? I should be able to experience this. Why should I miss out on these types of experiences just because I'm trans? But then there was also the side that was like, holy shit, I don't know this guy. Like, I don't know his views on this. Like, my gosh, people get killed in those types of situations. And if any like transphobic like person is watching this, they're going to go ham on this. They're going to have a freaking field day with this story. Because they'll be like, this is unethical, you shouldn't have. I can already freaking hear it. But that doesn't matter to me, because it's a thing that happened, and it's something that I accept, and it's something that I can reflect back on, and it's something that I can share with you to help you in your understandings as well. So that happened. I stopped it after a while, and we went our separate ways. I went home, and I was like, holy crap. What did I just do? And I think the next day I told him, and he was upset. He was upset about it. He was like, you know what? I actually don't really mind that much, but the fact that you didn't tell me before letting it get to that was like a absolute no for him. And I respect that. It's whatever to me. But at the time, that was really kind of upsetting, and it felt very shameful as well. There was a lot of shame attached to it. Yeah, this was absolutely freaking massive for me. The poor boundaries, like, I did have very poor boundaries with men. Like I said, because I thought their attraction validated my womanhood or whatever. That one has led me into some really sticky situations as well. There was another one in particular where I remember it was a guy who was really coming on to me at like a social gathering kind of thing. He didn't know. We shared a taxi. It was going to be that it was going to drop me home and then drop him home. He was like, no, you should come home with me. You should blah, blah, blah. And like really pushing me, being really incessant with it. And again, I was a little bit intoxicated and all of that. And this one was a little bit different. I didn't even want to. Part of me was like, oh my gosh, I feel so validated because this person's like, you know, wanting to have that experience with me or whatever. The other part was like, I am not comfortable with that situation. I don't even want that to happen. I don't even freaking know this guy. It was like, I wasn't even attracted. That was a little bit of a different one. And that for me is where like the boundaries come in. I had such poor boundaries because of my lack of confidence in myself and because of my lack of feeling valid in my own identity. And so I let things like that happen when it should not have happened. And this was another situation. He didn't know that I was trans. And it was such a weird, awkward situation. We slept in the bed together that night. I'm not down to do anything. I kind of just like set that boundary there. So when it comes to dating, it's important to be aware of your motivations for dating and to be aware of where is my self-worth at? How valid do I feel in my own identity? Where is my self-confidence at? Because all of those things are going to play a part in how you approach dating. It's going to play a part in whether you decide to tell someone before going on a date or whether you decide to tell them after. It's going to play a part in whether you set boundaries with people or whether you let things happen that shouldn't happen. It's going to have a really big impact on how you interact with people. Personally, I don't believe people should be dating unless they actually have that their own self-worth and everything. They've gotten that to a certain point first, and that's not always reasonable. Like that's it's a lifelong journey for some people. If they don't have the proper sort of emotional or psychological support, that can be a really long journey. Really, I would challenge you to be aware of your motivations there. If you want to date someone because you think it would validate you in your identity, maybe look at what is causing you to not feel valid in your identity first, because dating someone to get that validity is a band-aid solution. It's not true healing. It's not through acceptance of yourself. It is outsourcing your acceptance by seeking it from other people. And that is not healthy. That is not a healthy thing to rely on. Your self-acceptance is self-acceptance. It should come from within. When it comes to like disclosing, I've had a big shift in that. Nowadays, I am so open about my identity online. As you can probably see, this is the Trans Boss podcast. Like, I am so open about my identity. I have a lot of self-confidence. I have a lot of self-worth. I don't have time to be dating people when I don't even know whether they're going to accept me or not, or whether they're transphobic or not. I literally do not have the time for it. And that's a big shift for me. It's really important to me as well. Like, I'm not going to put the time into someone who doesn't already have a certain level of acceptance within themselves, who has a certain level of understanding and self-awareness. And like, my standards for dating someone are so much higher than they used to be. It used to be, oh, this person finds me attractive and is expressing attraction towards me. Oh my gosh, I love it. It was like a privilege, which is so gross. And oftentimes, I see this in like men in particular, they'll actually have that kind of mindset when they approach trans women as well. They're like, you should be so lucky, like, oh, a man attracted to you, like, you should be bowing at my freaking feet. Absolutely not. If the benchmark is so low that it's just, if you're attracted to me, that's a gold star, absolutely not. That is like one aspect of a connection. I want to know how self-aware you are. I want to know how strong your purpose is. I want to know what values you have in life. I want to know what makes you tick, what things light you up, what things you stand for, what you want to see more of in the world. Like, I want to know so much more than you're attracted to me. Like, okay, cool. It doesn't freaking matter, because if none of those other things are met, I don't want a bar of you anyway. Like, it literally doesn't matter. So I put that out really like from the get-go now. I let people know that you got to be motivated, you got to be purpose-driven, you got to be confident in yourself, you've got to be self-aware, you've got to like have a certain level of emotional intelligence. Otherwise, it's a no from me. Like, go find someone with lower standards. That's my take on it now. Like, it is not worth my time anymore. I will just put it out there. First and foremost, it'll be in the dating profile. I'll make sure that they've read it before I even engage in a conversation with them. And it saves so much time. It saves so much freaking time, because the people who don't have enough self-confidence, or they feel emasculated by things, or they're not, like fragile masculinity or things like that, they will weed themselves out. They'll show themselves out the door before I'm even interacting with them. And that is just, brilliant. It saves my time. It allows me to focus on the things that actually bring me joy and happiness and the people who actually accept me. And that gives you such a greater level of mental health, like a positive mental health. And so I'd really encourage you to think about that. Whether you, like, if you don't disclose, why is that? What are the fears behind that? If you disclose, what might happen? And if something comes up, like if I disclose beforehand, what if they don't take the time to get to know me? What if they don't accept me? What if they fill in the blank? And my question to you is, if those are there, what if you're right? What if they don't have the capacity or the willingness to think critically and to look at different perspectives and to have self-awareness? What if they don't have those things? And instead of that being them holding the power, and if they don't have those things, that's your problem. If they don't have those things, that's their problem. I'm not going to engage. And that comes with a level of self-confidence that is built over time, honestly. But I would really, really encourage you to think about that, because that'll show your motivations and that will show where those fears are for you, where those insecurities are for you. And ask yourself, is this a them thing to fix? Or is this a me thing to heal? And when you take responsibility for your own healing, you are able to create much greater change and much greater self-confidence and self-love and all of those things for yourself, which in turn will get rid of any unproductive desire to date someone. And I'd like to know from you, if you're over on YouTube, drop a comment. Let me know, what is your philosophy with this, with dating as a trans person? Do you think you should disclose before or after? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, especially after listening to this episode as well. How has it changed your thoughts on dating? I would love to know. That is all from me for this one. So I want to say thank you for watching and goodbye. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Trans Boss podcast. If you support the Trans Boss movement, it would help immensely if you could leave a review on your favorite podcasting app, follow us, and share your biggest takeaway from this episode on social media. Don't forget to tag me at jasmine.vine on Instagram, because I would love to see it. Now get out there, do the things, and take the next step into that empowered life you deserve. See you next time.